Now let's talk about our topic. Let's talk about jam. Not peanut
Yes,
butter and jam, but jam.
not that kind of jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so Jam is the new thing on Polkadot. We're going to talk about Polkadot for a bit. I know. So the thing about doing these technical updates is like we are definitely we prefer the Divi model. We prefer the Divi side chain model. We think that is the best implementation possible of
Yeah.
blockchain, where everything is trustless, where everything is truly as decentralized as possible. That said, the way everything exists is the way it exists, and Polkadot, like every other blockchain, has their silo and their tribe around them. And one
Yeah.
of the things that's not great is that we don't have somebody from the tribe kind of speaking here. That said, Voice and myself and Neeks do try to understand it as best we can,
Sure.
um, even and try to recognize the high points and acknowledge the low points, from our point of view. So we do try to give it a fair shake, but it would be better if there was a Polkadot cheerleader here. So I'll
And
just
really
acknowledge all that before we. Sorry.
we also had our engineer, right, who really spent
Yes.
some time looking into it.
Yeah. Correct.
And really, and I wanted to say that this update on the Polkadot side, I'm asking if they called it jam because they have an issue with their limited parachain. And so
Yeah.
that's why they did this update, right? Because
Right.
they were having some network issue, right? It's not enough. They don't
Yeah.
have
Not
enough to
enough.
scale, like they're completely stuck. And so they trying to find a path to keep growing. And so
Yeah.
they're
Okay. So
making this new option that is actually what others are doing.
fundamentally, I think Polkadot has a center relay chain. When I say had a center relay chain, and then these parachains that were built off of it, very similar to the way the Cosmos kind of architecture. Part of the way that they were designed allowed for 100 of these other chains to be allowed, and they kind of like rent space on the relay chain in order to exist. And there's space for 100. I think it's pretty clear that with 10,000 chains already out there, that 100's not really a good number, right? And so they made some changes to make it more attractive. And the two things that they make attractive are that the new system allows for more of these parachains. I think there's a new number. I think it's 1,000. I think it's
Yeah,
not
if I
infinite.
may add a detail, I
Yeah.
believe initially they started with 20, and then
Mhm.
they bumped to 100, and they had the goal to add more,
Yeah.
but their relay chain, that's basically how they call it, their hub,
Yeah.
is not supporting adding more chains, and so
Right.
that's why they start this new jam update that is
Right.
basically to address that.
Yeah. And so they did. So from my perspective, they did two things. One, they did this update to allow. I think they kicked the can down the road here, right? So it could do 100, and now it can do 1,000. I don't think they're actually claiming more than 1,000. Maybe they'll never fill the 1,000. But to me, like if they actually became popular, right? I don't think that 1,000's a good number either. I think that's not a great idea. Maybe they can kick the can down the road again later. I'm not sure, but having a number seems bad to me. That said, by having 1,000 chains working in parallel around a relay chain, they can claim very high transactions per second number because you aggregate across 1,000 chains, and then they've got a million TPS or something like that. So they're able to
That's
claim
right.
a new number by doing that, which
But we will see that they're making some very heavy some drawbacks on, like they are centralizing things, they
yes,
are making quorums of validators. So it is, for us, it is definitely not the right choices. We understand why they do that,
yeah,
especially that I think we have to look at Polkadot in like the industry that they are, right? Like they're competing with the Solana. Like that's the
yeah,
reality
sure,
of Polkadot, right?
yeah,
And so of course they're trying to find a solution to keep
yeah,
scaling.
Well, that's the other
Um,
thing that they did, right? When you say competing with Solana, they put a virtual machine on their relay network.
yes,
So there's smart
Correct.
yes.
contracts on the relay network, which begs the question: what do you need the parachains for?
So I think
Um,
it's not exactly smart contract, but it is something similar. It's
yeah,
one of those that are a little bit
Correct.
different but the same.
yeah. And so the way I kind of thought about it was, you can try out you could try out a service using the smart contract platform, and then if it becomes popular, you can move to a relay chain. Like maybe that's the idea around it. I'm not really sure, but it seems like that would be a good way to do it because then you're staying within their ecosystem.
Mhm.
Um, they tout themselves as an interoperable ecosystem, but like it's sort of the same thing as Cosmos, right? It's interoperable within itself. Um,
Correct.
and so there's not really talk about kind of like pushing like the definitions of terms. It's not really what we mean by interoperable, is it? Right. So what we mean by interoperable is that things talk to each other, and so they've built bridges to other chains, right? So there's a Bitcoin Polkadot bridge. There's an Ethereum
Correct.
Polkadot bridge, and those bridges have the same problems as all other bridges. Is that like on their Bitcoin bridge, they've got I forgot what they call them, but there's vaults, right? And then you can be approved to be an owner of a vault. So you got to make sure you're a good person. And then what ends up happening is that people who want to send funds to the Polkadot from Bitcoin sends funds to you as a vault owner, and then there's a system in place by which from there it gets bridged to those funds appear on Polkadot in token form. So
It's
you
not
can, I think it's
trustless, is
clear
what you're
that
saying.
the
Trust
trust
minimize
minimized,
again. Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
that it's clear where the trust happens here, even though the trust has been split up over people that they make sure are good people to be vault owners. But it's definitely not, it is not a trustless bridge. And it's certainly not a connection like Divi is proposing to connect layer one blockchains together with. So
That's
that's
right. And
between Divi
yeah,
and Divi Side Chains and other people we want to get in there. Yeah, exactly.
It's on Jam. I know that Uniques were going to say something, so I'm just going to concur with what you said because on Jam, the validators are there to enforce execution. And that means that we must trust parties. We must trust them because people can participate in Jam, but you must register and then you must stake your core time. So what does it mean register? The minute we start forcing hurdles over anything, we are no longer what's called open participation. And then if we're locking it to where it's only registered parties, why are we locking it to registered parties? And the reason for that is because something in the system needs to be protected. It
Yeah.
needs to be protected because it can be attacked. And so then we make it so only certain people can do certain things if they meet certain requirements or know the right people. I'm just saying in life how that happens. It's no longer open. You don't need to worry about that in Divi. You don't need to worry about that in Litecoin. You don't need to worry about that in Bitcoin. The minute you start adding features and functions that require you to lock the network down in some way, it becomes centralized to protect it. There's a reason for that. It just drives me crazy. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
right.
I
So
agree.
to clarify the model, so basically they have their relay chain, and then they have the para chains, and then this jam chain is the
Jam
update,
chain.
right?
Mhm.
And then it's connected through those validators, and those validators, one of the big gray area is that the staking system, the validation system, all of that is not part of their white paper.
No.
To quote them, it is said the staking system is out of scope of the present work. Instead, there is an API which may be utilized to update the keys. And we presume that whatever logic is needed for the staking system will be
Yeah.
introduced and utilized in use this API. So
Yeah.
for something that is that critical about the connection is it's clearly scary, because basically what they say is that they hit a limitation, right, a bottleneck of decentralization. So one of the problem of decentralization is, if you want to pass an information quickly, to be able to be validated by the network takes time. Like just this having
Yes.
consensus takes time. And to gain speed, they basically reduce the number of people which will be legitimate to validate, and then they can get to a consensus much faster. But now, so usually this is where you have some centralization and where you need to see some strong measure. But here they don't
Yes.
even tell you how they do it. So that's
No.
actually pretty concerning.
It's a gray paper. I mean, they don't even have yet
It's very
in
great.
the core time, because they don't have gas fees in the PVM or the Jam system. They have, what is it, core time? You have to actually purchase core time, right?
You rent time.
And then the model is there are elves, kind of like with the little pointy ears and the green hats on, that have a selection process which determines which validators can process transactions.
Yeah.
It's
There's
one
a couple
jumble
more.
right after another.
I've got kind of two more complaints about it, about especially about the ideas about interoperability. So in the Divi system, those side chains, they validate themselves.
Yes.
Whereas the way I'm understanding Polkadot is that their parachains are not independent.
It's validator approved, everything.
That's right. And,
and
and the Jam chain is not either. It is also dependent on the relayer,
Correct.
chain.
yeah, so that, to me, there's a little house of cards possible there. Now, that said, their staking protocol, it's called nominated proof of stake, which is supposed to improve upon delegated proof of stake. So if you remember EOS or Steam, I think Hive now, Tron, certainly, these are all delegated proof of stake. So you own coins, and then you delegate your coins and you're essentially voting for which nominator you think which validator you think should be validating the chain, and then usually they choose 21, right? So in Polkadots, they got this nominated proof of stake where you're still kind of like pointing your coins at different nominators that you think reward you best, or do the best. Right? There's a whole website for that, and you point your coins at them. But then their system, it's not 21. Their system ends up cycling through all the people who are nominated the most. So it's a little bit more decentralized. But that said, the relay chain, I think it has like 300 validators. I think it's still not this hugely decentralized blockchain, and all those validators, have to go through a process. And my final point on this is, like Solana, validating the equipment to validate Tron and other DPoS chains are pretty significant. The equipment required to validate Ethereum is pretty significant. It's not for all of us, to do. And the equipment to validate Polkadot is also pretty significant. So it's not. It's again not this thing. Even if there weren't rules about who could validate, there's definitely kind of like, there's a certain amount of people who could participate in the validation simply because of the hardware costs.
Yeah, having an Ethereum node on a data center is more than $1,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
it
so
is
crazy.
definitely not for everybody.
Yeah, and these are all the same. I think Solana's, of the group that I mentioned, I think Solana's are the worst. But
a validator on Ethereum though is less expensive, because you don't. But the full node to have like the full blockchain is definitely that. And again, that's only when you have the full blockchain, that you can actually make sure that it is legitimate, right? That again, this is really a strong component. I also wanted to get the attention of people on one word or three letters in what I read, which is API. When
Yeah.
you see an
Oh yeah.
API somewhere in anything that is supposed to be decentralized, it is not. Like an API is 100% centralized. It's controlled by one entity who can change that anytime, right? So it is, and they always do that like in a little sentence, and then up they go back to, yeah, we're all trustless. So these are small things that you should spot in reading a white paper. Um, Even like that white paper is actually extremely complex. Like they
Correct.
go through some problems of the industry, and they actually point it right. Like in reality, they're very aligned with the problems that we point out. However, the solution they come with is the same. Like it's the same kind of thing, just a
Complicated.
little bit different, like
Yep.
just a new shape a little bit. But yes, it is still like they basically have the relay chain that is a central hub, and then now they have this jam chain, which is like Ethereum, right? They're trying to build that thing, and then it can um, uh, compress whatever is happening so that it can still be verified on their relay chain, right? So it is still the same kind of model that we've seen, and as you mentioned, Rob, it is extremely risky. Like if there is any problem, like we've seen on more and more blockchains now that they stop, I mean, now the whole thing completely stops, right?
Yeah.
So
And
I want to give everybody who's going to listen most likely a real life example. When Neeg says API, he means a source, usually a central source. Can be a couple that could be backed up or cached or something, but an API is a source that you call and you get information from because you can't get the information and you don't store the information. You trust somebody else. For those who had the Divi mobile wallet from Divi Labs, your mobile wallet on your phone doesn't open up anymore. Why? Because it uses an API. If
That's right.
Exodus or Trust Wallet or this, just name any light wallet that you have on your phone right now, just about 99% of them will be using some form of an API, some server that it has to hit, or some data center that has a computer that has an endpoint that it just shares back that information. So when your mobile phone didn't work, that's essentially what Neeks is trying to speak about, is that all of these other computers managing the entire blockchain, that's scary because Divi Wallet wasn't the blockchain, didn't manage the blockchain, had nothing to do with the blockchain, but it helped you participate in some of the blockchain, and it went down because its API went down. If a blockchain is dependent upon some of its features, at least for now, currently on an API, it's not ready. It's just not ready. And if it were ready and they were using an API to support blockchain features and functions, that's scary. That is really, really, really scary. It's just not what you would want to do for a decentralized, distributed, open, participatory blockchain. You should have free access to the information.
And so where we differ is basically that there is no centralized, like Divi is not verifying anything for the side chains. Side chains are autonomous and
Correct.
they are connected to Divi. And in fact, and maybe we will get into that sometime, or maybe we aren't ready, but in fact, the side chains are the ones with the brain. Like they are the one making sure they keep the accounting clear.
Oh
and
yeah.
and so they basically don't rely on anything coming from elsewhere, and the Divi blockchain is not aware of what is happening on the side chain. They're not, while they're connected, they're able to connect to each other through the validators. They're not dependent from each other information
They're
sets,
not
basically,
reliant in
right?
that respect
So
where
it's a
one can
very, very
influence the
different
other.
approach.
Yeah.
The
So I want to point out something funny. If Polkadot can claim 1,000,000 TPS because of the capabilities of their 1,000 parachains,
right, right.
then Disney will be able to claim infinite TPS.
That's right.
Infinite.
That's
Yes.
exactly right. And not only that, right? Like here is another thing that I think probably difficult to understand as a user, but for people who develop applications, first of all, a blockchain or a chain like the Jam chain, if we were to see some benefits of any of that, it could be a sidechain of Divi. Okay, we would
Yeah.
have no limitation on that, and the reason is there is no consensus limitation, there is no rule set limitation. Someone who would like to develop a use case on a sidechain is not limited by what Divi is. It will
Right.
just connect to it like as money who can get
Yeah.
in and out to use the
Correct.
service, right? And so this really opens a lot more possibility. Like if you want to do something on Ethereum right now, or on Polkadot, like we were talking about, or on Solana, you basically have a tool set. And obviously, all those chains, they're trying to improve this tool set. For Divi, you don't need that, because basically every sidechain will have its own tool set for what it needs. And on top of being able to adapt to everything, it is also much more efficient, right? Because you don't have a bunch of tools that you don't need, that you need to keep in sync, because a blockchain has to keep always everything in sync. So it can be a lot more efficient in however it processes things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we covered it. I don't think there's more to really talk about.
And it
We're
was very
definitely not
technical.
calling it a blockchain.
Sorry.
Like it's what?
Yeah, I said, and
What?
he was very technical. Sorry.
Yeah, it was. It was. But we're definitely not calling it a shitty blockchain. We're not saying
No.
or
No,
anything like that. It's they're definitely, and they're out there now, right? It's just honestly I think the Divi kind of like mindset of what blockchain will look like is just different, and I think it's superior in many ways.
that's right.
And
I
those
agree.
ways are the important ways. Um, so we'll see how this goes. I'm pretty excited going forward.
And I think we can add that whatever we see, it's that again, right? Like a lot of the things they do, while we definitely are not aligned with their final result or the choices that they took, some components and from them and from others is the way we get to our
Yeah.
proposal for the industry, right?
Yeah.
Like without all
Mhm.
that, things don't come out of thin air.
Yeah.
Some things are definitely not ideal, but it is the path that they have taken, and it is a way for them to scale. And for us, it is also some kind of learning, right? To see what they went through, what solution that they found, to make sure that we don't end up in the same traps.
Yeah.
And it kind of revalidates every time the fact that we really have a gem in hand, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Cool. So I think that's
Cool.
all we need to talk about.
I
Yeah,
think
I think
so.
that's it.
I think so.